Very good afternoon to you. We are coming to you live from Parliament buildings in Nairobi. It is Thursday, the 4th day of April 2019. It is a day that we are having a joint sitting of Parliament. We have both the National Assembly, members of the National Assembly, and senators as well converging in the National Assembly chambers. And it is for none other than the very business of the State of the Nation address to be delivered by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is already within the precincts of Parliament, having arrived at about 2:33 p.m. this afternoon, and of course received by his hosts, both speakers, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, as well as members of the House leadership. A short while ago, he inspected a guard of honor, and right after the formalities, which included the national anthem of Kenya as well as the East African Community National Anthem, the head of state is expected to make his way inside Parliament buildings directly to a reception area as he awaits to make that entrance into the chambers. As projected on your screen, it is a full house, members of the National Assembly, members of the Senate, all seated, others just consulting, catching up as they await the State of the Nation address. It is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President, a fulfillment of Article 132(1) of the Constitution of Kenya that requires the President to, among others, once every year report in an address to the nation all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values as espoused in Article 10 of the Constitution. Under Article 247 of the Constitution, the President is also required in his capacity as chairperson of the National Security Council NSC to report to Parliament annually on the state of security of the Republic. And it is for these very purposes that we have this very auspicious occasion right here in the National Assembly this afternoon. Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, which will guide the President's State of the Nation address, speaks to national values and principles of governance, and specifically patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, participation of the people, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, and protection of the marginalized, good governance, integrity, transparency, accountability, and sustainable development. These are the issues that Wananchi, Kenyans, are expecting their leader, their president, to address this afternoon. And in summary of last year's State of the Nation address, that is coming exactly a year since the last one, and which was also very well attended as this one, attended by members of the National Assembly and the Senate, invited guests who include envoys, cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, who, as you can see on your screen, are already seated in the gallery, eagerly awaiting this session. And last year, just to recap, the President did dwell on security issues, securing the country, how to move ahead, measures taken to ensure that the country is secure, and most specifically in tackling issues of terrorism. That is indeed a global problem. The president also did speak about corruption and government's efforts in stepping up the fight. And this is one issue that members of the public, Wananchi, will be expecting him to dwell on this afternoon, especially in view of latest incidents of prominent personalities implicated in graft. And they will be keen to know what extra measures the government is taking to address this very thorny issue in the skin of the Kenyan public. It is also last year that the president extensively spoke about, or rather introduced, the Big Four agenda, one that speaks to the provision of affordable housing for Kenyans, affordable universal healthcare, ensuring that the nation is food secure, and also boosting the manufacturing sector. A development initiative that was seen or was geared towards addressing various Kenyan issues, top of which was unemployment, which continues to be a problem, and especially among the youth, many lamenting that it is difficult, even with educational, professional qualifications, to get means of livelihood. And that is also expected to be addressed this afternoon. The ballooning wage bill that the country is spending quite a lot to cater to its various needs, to make sure that various sectors are accommodated. And it is still struggling with national debt. And so Kenyans will be keen to know what measures, what steps are being taken to ensure that the country can manage its budget, as it were. The president will also be expected to probably highlight the recently introduced National Information System, Integrated System NIMS, also known as Huduma Number, an initiative that was rolled out on Tuesday this week nationwide that seeks to harmonize identification of Kenyans. There has been a lot of speculation as to the validity or genuineness of this particular initiative by government, Kenyans asking questions, a number of critics also casting aspersions to the motive for this particular exercise at this point. And so it is expected that this afternoon, His Excellency, the President, will be addressing these issues. A panoramic view of the National Assembly, just to show you that it is indeed a full house, that members of the National Assembly, members of the Senate have come out in their numbers to sit in, to listen to the head of state from the executive, what awaits them, what awaits the nation. These are the people charged with taking care of the country's legislative agenda, and so they will be keen to listen into what the executive has in store for them, how they can work together alongside, of course, the third arm of government, the judiciary, to ensure that there is service delivery to the Kenyans. A brief rundown of the program once the head of state comes into the chamber. There will be a convocation, which is ideally a formal convening of this joint sitting of the 12th Parliament, which is currently in the third session. That first convocation will be done by the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka. He will be followed by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, who, after making his convocation, will proceed to invite His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta to make his address. And immediately after that address, both speakers will take to the floor, starting with the Speaker of the Senate, followed by the Speaker of the National Assembly, and that will be to wrap up the proceedings and to adjourn both houses of this bicameral parliament of the Republic of Kenya. As earlier mentioned, it is a broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. It is a broadcast that is available to you on KBC Channel 1. You can also access it on Signet, Bunge TV. Also available is an audio version on KBC Radio Taifa, where my colleagues Tilio Marco and Samuel Musita are giving you the heads up as to what is transpiring this afternoon in Kiswahili. There is also a live feed available on YouTube. All those are avenues through which you can access this broadcast, eagerly anticipated by members of the public, a lot of expectations, even as they continue to mill around the outskirts of Parliament, noting, of course, that this is currently a highly secure area. Security apparatus deployed to ensure that everything is in place, and so there are those who are outside on the periphery, just waiting to catch a glimpse of the head of state and also of their leaders. It probably is the only chance they have to see them up close, and majority, I'm sure, will be following those proceedings on their various platforms. Some meet and greet going on in the chambers as members patiently await that State of the Nation address. And of course, it is all in good, they are in good spirit, appearing to motivate each other and cheer each other up. Probably someone has seen someone who's familiar in the chamber, and noting the nature of their jobs, that sometimes their schedules could clash because of their different responsibilities, not just here in the National Assembly or Senate, but also back in mashinani at the grassroots, at the constituency levels, at the county levels, where their electorate, wananchi, also require them to connect with them from time to time so as to get a feel of their representation in Parliament. Members of the House leadership already in the chambers. Even as the House orderlies, the sergeant-at-arms from both houses do their bit just to ensure everything is in check, is in place, as they await that arrival by the head of state. And of course, when that moment comes, there shall be order. The House will be settled. And they will all assemble in their respective seats and wait. The National Assembly had to postpone the short recess. It was due last week in order to accommodate this very crucial business. And so probably, as they will be guided, they could, after this, proceed on that short break after dispensing with this very important bit of their legislative calendar. This being the 12th Parliament, the third session. It is also the second State of the Nation address in this second term of His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta. Also coming against the backdrop of a number of initiatives by government to empower the Mwananchi, coming against the backdrop of calls for national cohesion, calls for peace, in light of that very famous handshake between His Excellency the President and the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga. That gave way or paved the way for the Building Bridges initiative, whose task force has been traversing the country, meeting the public, listening to them, hearing what they have to say, their contribution, their thoughts on what they think is the best way forward for this country, how best Kenyans can unite for Kenya, how best to move forward. And all that happening even as their concerted efforts to slay the dragon of graft. The Sergeant at Arms marching in, announcing the arrival of His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta in the National Assembly this afternoon to deliver the State of the Nation address, escorted by the Sergeant at Arms from both the Senate and the National Assembly, and of course the speakers of both houses, Honorable Justin Muturi of the National Assembly, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka of the Senate, Mr. Michael Sialai and Mr. Jeremiah Nyengenye, clerks of both houses. It is a live broadcast brought to you by the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. My name is Vareso Mwanga. On behalf of the entire crew, I welcome you to follow this joint sitting of the State of the Nation address. Good afternoon and welcome.
Yuko ukumbini tayari. Na msikilizaji, hizo zimekuwa ni
Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Okay, order members. Order members. Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. The Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, Honorable Members of Parliament, Article 1321B of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address a special sitting of the Parliament of Kenya once every year and at any other time. Further, Article 1321C requires the President to, among others, once every year report in an address to the nation all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values set out in Article 10 of the Constitution. In addition, Article 247 of the Constitution requires the President, in his capacity as the chairperson of the National Security Council, NSC, to report to Parliament annually on the state of the security of the Republic. In this regard, pursuant to Article 1321B and C1 and B of the Constitution and Senate Standing Order number 22.1 and 2, upon a request by the Presidency via letter reference number SH/5/22/volume 208, dated 7th March 2019, I gave notice of today's special sitting to the Honorable Senators by Gazette Notice number 2921, which was published in the Kenya Gazette on 26th March 2019. Accordingly, Honorable Members, this special sitting is properly convened. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, the Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Ken Lusaka, Honorable Members of Parliament. Article 132, Clause 1 of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address the nation once every year and at any time. In this regard, pursuant to Article 132, Clause 2, Clause 1, Paragraph B and C, Roman 1 and 2 of the Constitution, and the provisions of Standing Order number 22 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, by Gazette Notice number 2920, which was published in the Kenya Gazette on 26th of March 2019, I gave notice of this special sitting to the members of the National Assembly. Accordingly, honorable members, this special sitting is properly convened. Your Excellency, it is the custom of Parliament to recognize invited guests seated at the Speaker's row. I therefore wish to recognize the following guests in this order. The Honorable His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Justice David Maraga, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, and the Africa Union's High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, the former Vice Presidents of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, and the Honorable Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi. The Governor of Nairobi City County Government, the Honorable Mike Buvi Sonko, and the former speakers of the Houses of Parliament, the Right Honorable Francis Xavier Ole Kaparo, and the Right Honorable David Ekwe Ethuro. They are all welcome to Parliament during this momentous occasion of the address by His Excellency the President. Honored members of Parliament, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of Kenya Defense Forces to address this special sitting of Parliament. Your Excellency.
The Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Members of Parliament, fellow Kenyans, in accordance with Article 132 of the Constitution, indeed I am honored to report to Parliament the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of the national values set out in Article 10 of our Constitution, as well as the progress made in fulfilling our international obligations. Indeed, it is my pleasure to submit the same to this special sitting of the two Houses of Parliament and to the entire nation of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the state of our nation is strong. We remain a country striving and ambitious, taking on our pressing challenges and not avoiding them. We do this because we know that the path to lasting cohesion, decent jobs for our people, can only be achieved in an environment where fairness, integrity, and the rule of law are observed by all citizens without exception. Mr. Speaker, as President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, I have heard the cries of our people and their stated hopes and aspirations for a better Kenya. When they elected me as their president, I committed to strive and unceasingly fulfill the trust and confidence that they placed in me, and I will not turn back on this commitment. I am well aware that the task ahead of us, no doubt, is enormous. But there can be no turning back in our quest to transform our national economy to become truly an engine for creating jobs and opportunities for Kenyans. There is no turning back on government reforms that are intended to improve service provision to all Kenyans. And there is no turning back on fighting all enemies of Kenya, foreign or domestic, so as to secure and to ensure that Kenyans and their property are safe. Mr. Speakers, there is no turning back on the obligations we have made in the Big Four agenda to environmental sustainability, to intergenerational equity, and to upholding a strong rule-based international system. There will be no turning back on the Building Bridges initiative that assures inclusion, cohesion, unity, and respect for all Kenyans. There will be no turning back on the war against corruption. As it is a just war and a war to prevent misuse of public resources for selfish interests by those who have been entrusted to manage them. We are not turning back because we are determined to gift our children a better Kenya than the one we inherited. A prosperous Kenya where the respect for the rule of law and integrity are accepted norms. Mr. Speaker, following the country's first general election under the new constitution, I took the oath of office as the first president elected under the new legal order. My first term laid the foundation for a better Kenya by building on the promise and aspirations of the new constitution as articulated under Article 10, and therefore set the stage to propel our country to greater security, health, unity, prosperity, equity, and justice. The national values and principles of governance epitomize the vision that Kenyans have for their nation. The 43 words are the promise we have made to ourselves and the generations to come. As we reflect on these values, let us ask ourselves as leaders in the public, as well as the private sectors, and indeed as well as ordinary Kenyans, how much we are paying heed to these values and principles in our own personal conduct. Across the length and breadth of this great nation, ordinary Kenyans continue to do extraordinary things that show that the flame of our national spirit burns brighter than ever before. Our men and women in various disciplines keep the flag of Kenya flying high at international events, bringing glory to our nation. In this regard, amongst many, the nation salutes Eliud Kipchoge and his compatriots who have continued to make our national anthem echo around capitals of the world. We are proud of our Peter Tabichi, who was recently voted the best teacher in the world, and he has demonstrated our aspiration and potential to deliver world-class educational standards. Our entrepreneurs and business leaders are driving forward our economy, which I am proud to say remains one of the largest and most vibrant on this continent. Leading the string of innovators is Roy Alila, who garnered global accolades for inventing smart gloves that convert sign language movement into audio speech. Mr. Speakers, these Kenyans remind us what we could achieve if we remain true to our national values. Indeed, on behalf of a grateful nation, I do thank those men and women who serve the Republic in whatever capacity, who uphold our values and our way of life, who defer to what is right, who show that our diversity is an asset, and all those who have paid the ultimate price to secure our freedoms and way of life. Mr. Speakers, devolution remains one of the new innovations of our new constitutional order. Since April of 2013, more than 1.7 trillion shillings have been transferred to the counties. Devolution has received the full and firm support of my administration, and together with an enabling and supportive parliament, we have seen it transform lives, revive local economies, and bring service delivery closer to the people. There can be no turning back on devolution. The system is sound and has proven its value and contribution to national development. However, I do believe that as Parliament remains a strident defender of our democracy, and I laud Parliament for its steady guiding hand as we implement our transformative agenda for the country and its commitment to playing its constitutionally mandated oversight role. Mr. Speaker, I wish to acclaim Parliament for its continued diligence, for in the period under review, 22 bills have been enacted into Acts of Parliament, with just 2 currently awaiting presidential assent. Some of the groundbreaking legislation that has been enacted from Parliament over the last year include the Kenya Coast Guard Services Act, which established our nation's first Coast Guard service, the Petroleum Act, the Energy Act, and the National Youth Service Act. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate the implementation of our programs under the Big Four, I urge both houses of Parliament to fast-track the mediation of the Land Value Index Laws Amendment Bill, the Physical Planning Bill, the Irrigation Bill, and the Warehouse Receipt System Bill, as well as the Kenya Roads Bill. Mr. Speaker, the consideration and approval by Parliament of various protocols, treaties, as well as sessional papers continues to enhance Kenya's international standing in the community of nations, creating stability and predictability in our governance framework. During the period under review, various treaties and protocols have been ratified, including the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the Tripartite Free Trade Area Agreement, and the EAC Protocol on Cooperation in Meteorological Services. I am pleased to note that Parliament has also approved the National Housing Policy and the National Policy on Climate Financing, and 2 sessional papers that will have tangible benefits on the day-to-day lives of Kenyans, and I look forward to continued positive engagement with Parliament in the quest for a better Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the state of our economy is also strong. Our broad-based economic growth averaged 5.6% over the last 5 years, outperforming the average global growth. In 2018, our provisional estimates show that the economy grew by 6.1%, and this encouraging performance was supported by strong public and private sector investments, as well as prudent macroeconomic policies. In 2018, economic growth was largely driven by the wholesale and retail trade, real estate, information and communication, and tourism. It is worth noting that despite the challenges facing the wholesale and retail trade, the sector has also attracted new international supermarket chains and continues to support the expansion of domestic players. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, we expect an even stronger growth of 6.3%, reflecting continued improvement in the business environment, political stability as a result of building bridges, as well as improvement in the environment associated with the execution of the Big Four agenda and sustained macroeconomic stability. Honorable Speaker, in the same reporting period, inflation averaged 4.6%, remaining within the set targets. Our official foreign exchange reserves averaged US $8.7 billion in the review period, representing 5.8 months of import cover. These reserves provide the country with adequate buffer against shocks in the foreign exchange market. Indeed, the Kenya shilling has held steady against major currencies, with an annual average exchange rate of about 101 to the US dollar. This was supported by a narrowing of the gap between our export of goods and services, from 5.5% of gross domestic product in February of 2018 to 4.7% in February of 2019. Agricultural exports, particularly horticulture, receipts from tourism, and diaspora remittances largely explain the improvement in our current account position. In the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index 2019, Kenya's ranking improved 19 places to position 61 globally. This made our nation one of the most improved countries during the review period. It is our intention to build on this success to further improve our ranking to be among the top 20 by the year 2020, top 50 by the year 2020. Overall, our economic outlook remains positive, underpinned by the implementation of our transformative development agenda. Mr. Speakers, we remain true to our long-term strategy, the Kenya Vision 2030. Our medium-term plan of 2018 to 2021 is centered around the Big Four agenda. During this period, we expect the economy to grow at an annual average rate of 6.6%. And our focus is on social economic interventions in critical sectors that we believe will enhance the quality of life for all Kenyans in ways that are tangible and measurable. In manufacturing, my administration is prioritizing local motor vehicle assembly and manufacturing of spare parts. This initiative has witnessed Peugeot and Volkswagen assembly lines set up in Kenya. Since their revival, the two companies have jointly assembled 627 motor vehicles, and by the end of 2019, they will have assembled at least 1,500 vehicles, and this is a positive beginning for a sector that is expected to rapidly expand and make Kenya the regional motor vehicle assembly hub. This will create various opportunities for our people, particularly for our youth. Our program on universal health coverage is expected to ensure a healthier nation as the basis for social economic development. And in this regard, we have successfully rolled out the pilot phase of the program in the counties of Isiolo, Machakos, Nyeri, and Kisumu. The program has witnessed enhanced access to essential health services with an average increase across the pilot counties of 39% reported. We are on course for the full rollout of the universal health coverage in the year 2019-2020 in the remaining 43 counties. Honorable members, agriculture is the largest employer in the economy, accounting for 60% of total employment. In recognition of its central role, my administration earmarked the sector as a key pillar of the Big Four as we seek to ensure food security and nutrition for all Kenyans. Our reforms are aimed at being farmer-centric and are focused on reducing the cost of food, increasing agricultural value addition, and offering incentives for farming. To enhance food production at household level over the last year, we have constructed 4,400 water pans under the household irrigation water projects. The pans will store 6 million cubic meters of water, placing an additional 6,000 acres under irrigation. To address the perennial challenges in the sugar and maize subsectors, my administration commits to decisively act on the recommendations of the two sectoral task forces that are slated to report their findings later this month. I expect that the teams will propose bold and transformative interventions to revive and substantially grow in a sustainable way these important subsectors. Additionally, my administration has prioritized reforms in the coffee subsector and implemented numerous interventions emanating from the recommendations of the Coffee Task Force. These include the ambitious rehabilitation of 500 pulping stations in 31 coffee-growing counties. Mr. Speaker, with a view to comprehensively resolve the problem of undue delays in the payment cycle, we have also set up a 3 billion Cherry Advance Revolving Fund to be operational from July 1, 2019. Consequently, all coffee farmers across the country will be able to access the Cherry Advance at a modest interest rate of 3%. Mr. Speakers, access to decent and affordable housing is a basic human right that my administration is determined and committed to honor. We are fulfilling this through the Affordable Housing Program. To realize this vision, we have promulgated the Affordable Housing Development Framework Guidelines, providing the enabling policy and financing for the rollout of this program. We are now on track to deliver affordable housing to Kenyans. This life-changing program is being undertaken in partnership with county governments as well as the private sector. Indeed, Kenyans have already shown that they are ready for this program. Despite court case delays and initial delays, over 175,000 Kenyans have already registered under the voluntary scheme known as Boma Yangu. These Kenyans will undoubtedly be first in line for the allocation of new housing. Additionally, the Affordable Housing Program is expected to create opportunities for local industry. In this regard, we have ring-fenced the supply of certain components, such as doors, windows, cupboards, for the exclusive delivery by micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. This will not only put money in the pockets of our local artisans, but also support the formalization of this industry. The delivery of the Big Four is on course, and we expect the private sector to take advantage of the policies and incentives in place and turn the four priority areas into mighty engines of wealth and job creation. Honorable Speakers, the realization of the Big Four is dependent on critical enablers, including energy, transport, education, water, information and communication, and technology. To provide reliable and cost-effective electricity that meets current and future demand, we have put in place measures to accelerate the development of the entire power generation, electricity transmission, and supply infrastructure. This will also support the realization of universal access to electricity by the year 2022. I am happy to report that installed capacity has increased from 1,768 megawatts in March of 2013 to the current 2,712 megawatts, with Lake Turkana Wind, Gong Wind, Garissa solar power plants joining the grid within the last year. In collaboration with development partners, we have made tremendous gains in scaling up connectivity over the last 6 years, with the number of electricity connections rising from 2.2 million in March of 2013 to 7.1 million as at March of 2019. The tangible impact on the lives and livelihoods of our people associated with the increased electricity connectivity cannot be gainsaid. With respect to road infrastructure, our agencies continue to upgrade new roads to bitumen standard in addition to rehabilitating existing ones. Notable road projects completed in the last year are the 9-kilometer Dongokundu Miritini Mwache Road, the 47-kilometer Kisumu Kakamega Road, the 38-kilometer Chebilat Ikonge Chabara Road, the 35-kilometer Ojoro Dondori Road, the 80-kilometer Kamatira Cheptongei Road in West Pokot, and the 38-kilometer Kisima Kibirishia Kina Roiro Road in Meru County. Within our capital city, we continue to rehabilitate major arteries, including Ngong Road Phase 1, Githurai Kimbo Road Phase 2, Wayaki Red Hill Road, amongst others. Our intention is to position Nairobi to join the League of First World Cities. These interventions have facilitated faster and cheaper movement of goods and persons, connecting our people. Better still, the expansion and upgrading of our road network has mitigated traffic congestion and enhanced road safety in our major cities and municipalities. On rail infrastructure, we are on course to completing Phase 2A of our region's most iconic infrastructure project, was for 2019. Over 2.5 million Kenyans have traveled by Madaraka Express since inception in May 2018, and 3.9 million tons of cargo have been transported on the line. On air transport, we are seeing an upward trajectory in Kenya, and to facilitate this, we continue to upgrade our airports and airstrips across the country. Indeed, in October of 2019, Kenya was able to launch direct flights connecting Nairobi to New York. And this connectivity is expected to increase the number of tourists in the country, while opening up a large market in the United States for our export produce. Today, honorable speakers, our transformative agenda is visible to all. These infrastructure developments, in addition to supporting the realization of the Big Four, have opened up opportunities for big and small businesses and improved the livelihoods of many Kenyans. Honorable speakers, my administration recognizes the role played by micro, small, and medium enterprises in spurring the development of our country. The sector employs approximately 14.9 million Kenyans and contributes an estimated 28% of our gross domestic product. To unlock the latent potential resident in this sector, my administration has been working towards addressing the challenges of access to credit, training, and skills development. In this regard, we will be launching an SME credit guarantee scheme in a few weeks aimed at deepening their access to credit without being subjected to complex application procedures and collateral requirements. These interventions are critical to production of competitive goods and services for the domestic, regional, as well as global markets. Indeed, in respect to the leather value chain, a common manufacturing unit at Kariokor Market in Nairobi is nearing completion. Once fully equipped, this center will provide impetus to the local shoemaking industry and to professionalize as well as to standardize manufacture of shoes. We are also undertaking similar initiatives in the textile value chain at Uhuru Market, developing a center of excellence for the modern production of finished textile goods. The above intentions are intended to promote the values of social justice, inclusivity, and access for all, ensuring that the benefits of our growing economy are not just limited to a few people. To facilitate inclusivity and to enable appropriate planning for the needs of all persons, we are also this year rolling out the 2019 National Housing and Population Census, and that will happen later this year. This exercise, together with the National Integrated Identity Management System, commonly known as NEEMS, will ensure that all persons resident in Kenya will be enumerated in order to provide accurate data that is required for proper planning at all levels of government. Additionally, it is expected that when fully implemented, a comprehensive one-stop shop for all population and national identity records will be in place. Honorable Speakers, the national values are best realized through proactive reform measures in education. It is in our schools that we can best embed in our children human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusivity, and all the other values that we cherish and hold dear. And it is for this reason that my administration introduced curriculum reforms designed to better align our education system with our national values. These reforms are expected to mold a people who embody innovation and excellence. The result will be a globally competitive human capital base, having the tools for success in a fast-paced and dynamic world. Honorable Speakers, in fulfillment of the same, in 2018, my administration adopted the policy on universal access to basic education. The policy seeks to ensure that all our children enroll in primary school and complete their secondary education with a 100% transition rate. This measure will go a long way to ensuring that all Kenyans have access to equal opportunities and a chance to further their passions. Our aggressive push of this agenda has this year seen us achieve a 100% transition rate, the highest on the African continent. Honorable members, to address the pressure on school facilities across the country, my administration has prioritized development of school infrastructure for the fiscal year 2019-2020. I also, today, call on all members to act in solidarity with our children and approve the education budget as per our request. Secondly, I also urge members of the National Assembly to prioritize allocation of the constituency development funds towards school infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, there is no turning back on the commitment to ensure that no child is left behind. As part of the tertiary education reforms, my administration has implemented a rejuvenation of the vocational training institutions to build on the skills needed to contribute to nation building, and in particular the manufacturing pillar of the Big Four. Over the last 3 years, my administration has set aside an unprecedented amount of resource towards supporting students joining technical and vocational training institutions. We are a country, Mr. Speaker, we are a country blessed with natural resources, which, if properly managed, will transform in a big way our nation and the welfare of our people. We, however, must appreciate that these resources are finite, and in that context, it must be our solemn duty as a state to manage these resources sustainably for the fair and equitable benefit of both present and future generations. Mindful of this duty, my administration has developed and will be presenting before this session of Parliament the Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill. The bill proposes creation of a fund and provides a legal framework to guide the investment of revenues from oil, gas, minerals, and other qualifying natural resources. The fund as proposed in this bill comprises of 3 parts, notably a stabilization fund, an infrastructure development fund, and a future generation fund. It is important to underscore that other than the cost of services of those entrusted to manage the fund, all monies in the fund will be used to finance critical national development programs in order to ensure sustainability. Honorable Speakers, sustainable development is a constitutional imperative and one of the national values. Sustainable development remains a core consideration within my government, guiding the outlook and implementation of our policy, programs, and projects across the board. As the host nation of the United Nations Environmental Programme, Kenya remains a global leader in environmental conservation and sustainable development. My administration has spearheaded the implementation of various environmental initiatives, including interventions for the sustainable exploitation of the blue economy, sustained the ban on environmentally harmful classes of plastics and polythene carrying and packaging materials, enhanced the protection and promotion of our nation's forests, in line with our commitment to achieve a minimum of 10% forest cover by the year 2020, and interventions with regard to water and air quality. These interventions not only protect the environment, but also create business and employment opportunities through the green economy. Indeed, as a result of our interventions, Kenya is today a global leader in green energy, with 85% of our energy mix coming from renewable sources. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to update this House on the progress we have made fulfilling our international obligations and positioning Kenya as a leader in the region, continent, and globally. Kenya has always and will continue to fulfill her international obligations as a responsible member of the community of nations. We do so conscious of the fact that fidelity to international law and commitment to our international obligations is critical to the structured management of international and diplomatic relations, and will promote our pursuit of common interests with other states. Kenya is a party to over 280 multilateral treaties, and in the past 1 year, we have ratified 3 multilateral treaties. These instruments will enhance market access for Kenyan products in Africa, share critical information, and generate wealth and jobs for Kenyans. My government continues to lobby for and to participate in senior positions within various international organizations. Honorable Speakers, Kenya's election to the AU Peace and Security Council in 2019 and our strategic decision to vie for a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council for the period 21 to 2022 are geared towards affirming Kenya's historic pride as a leader in regional peace and security. During the period under review, Kenya has invested in robust diplomatic engagements at a bilateral and multilateral level in furtherance of our strategic national interests. These include engagements within and with regional partners such as Ethiopia, Namibia, and Uganda, and globally with the United States of America, Canada, France, China, and the United Kingdom, among other peer jurisdictions. Building a better Kenya, honorable speakers, is ultimately the desire of every Kenyan. But we must be alive to the reality that this noble goal cannot be achieved if we are operating in disharmony. Every one of us, honorable members, must appreciate the importance of unity and cohesion in this pursuit. We all know the damage that we have suffered in the past as a result of discord amongst ourselves. Indeed, it has been and it remains an urgent agenda of mine to bring harmony, unity, and civility to the political landscape and discourse in this country. And that is what informed the Building Bridges Initiative, commonly known as the handshake. Honorable speakers, in all our cultures, a handshake is an expression of goodwill, friendship, trust, and reconciliation. It is synonymous with peace. Indeed, our handshake has been followed by millions of handshakes across the length and breadth of the Republic. Many leaders across the country and at every level of government have opted for a renewed politics of unity. And this has given Kenya a new and stable platform upon which we can rise above individual and sectarian interests, religious divide, and partisan politics, as we all together build a better, stronger, and more prosperous Kenya. We know very well that we were successful in securing our independence because as a people we were united. Unity was our key weapon. Therefore, honorable members, we cannot and we are not turning back on uniting the country. We have chosen the hard road. We have chosen the hard road of building unity and cohesion against the easy road of division. We are a greater people for it. Indeed, already the Building Bridges Initiative is engaging Kenyans across the entire length and breadth of our country, and soon we will have an opportunity to comment on their findings and recommendations. Against this backdrop, honorable speakers, I reaffirm a commitment previously made, and which I hope this House this year will pass, of designating a Kenya shillings 10 billion fund to heal the wounds of historical grievances which have long poisoned our politics and strained communal relations. With Parliament's help and through the affected communities, we will be applying the fund towards establishing symbols of hope across the country through construction of heritage sites, community information centers. And these will remind us and our future generations of the journey taken towards reconciliation and healing. Mr. Speaker, the unity that we are pursuing is not only between brothers and sisters within our borders, but also the unity of brothers and sisters that form the East African community and the greater continent of Africa. The path to prosperity for individual African states lies in promoting inter-Africa trade, integration, building bridges between our communities and nations that recognizes that we have far more in common with each other than we have as differences. Honorable Speaker, only recently in Mombasa, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of Uganda, recently remarked that the integration of Africa is centered on three issues: security, and fraternity. When we talk about integration, we are talking about prosperity of families of Africa. We are talking about the prosperity of business groups in Africa and creating space for shared prosperity. Honorable speakers, Kenya's prosperity, security, and fraternity lies in even closer unity with our partners in the EAC at the first level, and thereafter wider regional and continental alignments. My administration remains committed to maximizing the benefits for Kenya by mutually deepening economic and eventual political integration of the East African community. In line with the spirit of Pan-Africanism, I also wish to extend our gratitude to the African Union for appointing one of our own to spearhead infrastructural connectivity across the continent. This is key. This is key to actualizing the shared prosperity of the African people through promoting trade between our brothers and sisters and further strengthening our bond of unity in this great continent. Honorable speakers, turning to security, I am proud to say that the state of our national security is also equally strong. As an island of peace in a conflict-prone and fragile region, Kenya nevertheless faces challenges from transnational crimes such as money laundering, terrorism financing, smuggling of narcotics, human trafficking, and the trade in illicit small arms and light weapons. In the past year, our country continued to strengthen its alliances and partnerships for security. The skills and capabilities of our defense, security, and intelligence services have grown in leaps and bounds. And as a country, we are much better prepared to address the threats to our national security. Today, we honor the brave men and women who have paid the ultimate price for our security. We thank the individual Kenyans who are willing to speak up bravely against radicalization and criminality, and for standing up to serve their fellow Kenyans. And we announce again to our enemies and the world that Kenya as a nation cannot be stopped by their plots and evils. Our will to greatness, to cohesion and unity, to development and prosperity, and to peace and security will never be turned back or aside. Our practical efforts reflect these spirits. Our response to external and transnational security threats has been determined reforms to our immigration system's integrity and the strengthening of our border security and management. Our border points are better managed, and the establishment and continued expansion of the new Border Police Unit is deterring, detecting, and disrupting threats to our security. We have effectively adopted today a follow-the-money approach to investigations and prosecutions that will continue to be strengthened and applied across the range of serious crimes, including economic ones. We have seized and destroyed confiscated narcotics, while continuing to interdict smuggled contraband and counterfeit products. Indeed, the brave men and women of the Kenya Defense Forces stand tall, protecting the homeland from external threats. They also serve in foreign lands as part of a global commitment to promoting and protecting peace and security. Within our borders, our law enforcement agencies and security officers are constantly detecting, deterring, dismantling, and destroying threats to the people and the state. They sacrifice selflessly so that Kenyans can live in safety and freedom. My administration has continued to encourage participation of our people in promoting national security and in protecting communities. Over 15,000 Nyumba Kumi clusters have already been established across the country. The unique national innovation of county action plans to prevent and counter violent extremism are also being rolled out across the country. Kenya is a country that believes in giving second chances. To those who are genuinely seeking to return to a path of legal conduct and to embrace our constitutional values. And in this regard, we are undertaking initiatives to disengage, rehabilitate, and reintegrate returnees who have been members of listed terrorist groups. We will continue to press the war against terrorist groups and networks, as well as their facilitators. But key to this is continuing to strengthen our legal tools against these groups so that they are unable to take advantage of our democracy and our open society to hide in plain sight while planning to perpetrate their crimes against our people. Our nation will not turn back from the path of democracy and the rule of law because of the actions of a few criminals. However, we remain unshakably committed to our values in this, and I truly believe that we shall prevail. Honorable Speaker, in recognition of the fact that our law enforcement agencies, and in order for them to effectively discharge their duties, they need to be empowered and appropriately capacitated. We are therefore undertaking enhanced training and improvements in welfare, more effective use of technology, equipment, and far better coordination between and within parties. Honorable Speakers, almost 2,000 CCTV cameras are now working in Mombasa and Nairobi, offering real-time 24-hour security monitoring. And this has greatly assisted our police in resolving complicated crimes. To foster security, the government has also repossessed 5,050 assorted weapons illegally held by civilians as part of the ongoing firearm verification process. Honorable Speakers, Kenya leads the region in developing a vibrant digital commercial sector. And in this regard, we have developed a national cybersecurity strategy, enacted the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, implemented a national cybersecurity training initiative, and established specialized teams with defensive cyber warfare capabilities in an endeavor to protect our economy from cyber crimes. Honorable Speakers, honorable members, from the foregoing, it is clear that the state of our nation is strong, vibrant, and I believe brimming with promise. However, Mr. Speaker, corruption and impunity endangers each and every one of these gains. It compromises on the promise of devolution, our economic growth targets, the realization of the Big Four. It compromises access to education. It compromises our security, human dignity, and the rule of law, and by extension, the very existence of our republic. Corruption and impunity create social distortions and divisions, fuels inequality and poverty, destroy the fabric of our society, and diminishes the vitality of our nation's upcoming generations by setting the wrong example for them. As I said earlier, there is no community, no religion, no moral code in Kenya that endorses stealing and abusing positions of responsibility. Africans, no matter their heritage or where they are in this continent, have ethical and moral principles as core to their cultures. The magnitude of the war against corruption we are fighting today is unprecedented, and it is taking place within our core institutions, Parliament, the executive, the judiciary, county governments, and also in our religious institutions, as well as private sector and professional bodies. While past administrations made attempts to deal with the challenge, the problem remained enormous and required more determined focus. Honorable Speaker, following my proclamation on anti-corruption in 2015, my administration embarked on a program to deepen the fight against corruption through strengthening and resourcing the institutions charged with this most noble duty. Since then, honorable speakers, we continue to witness the highest levels of engagement and action on this previously taboo subject. For the first time in our nation's history, 8 cabinet secretaries, 8 principal secretaries have had to step aside to give way for investigations and prosecutions, a concept previously unknown in public sector management. Honorable speakers, 7 current and former governors and over 30 chief executive officers of state corporations are under active investigation or prosecution for various corruption-related offenses. In several cases, banks and other financial institutions have been fined for breach of regulatory duty. Infidelity with the law upon institution of any charges against a public or state officer, my administration has dutifully relieved the office holder of their public duties. Indeed, just this morning, I have exercised the legal instrument revoking the appointment of a High Court judge recommended for removal for corruption-related offenses. These are the outcomes of a dedicated and resolute government undertaken within the framework of the rule of law. Therefore, honorable members, to safeguard these outcomes, those institutions charged with this responsibility need to be strengthened, not weakened. But even with the success we have made, we cannot as yet celebrate. The challenge is still with us and required more concerted efforts to eliminate it. Honorable members, Kenyans have spoken loudly and challenged us as leaders to do all that it takes to eradicate this cancer. This they did during the National Anti-Corruption Conference held in January of this year, where they tasked me, the Speakers of Parliament, the Chief Justice, and the Council of Governors to commit to various demands that would entrench and widen the fight against corruption. Mindful of my cardinal responsibility, which is to serve Kenyans, as bestowed upon me by the Constitution, my administration has opted for an all-out assault on corruption. In this endeavor, and in pursuit of this noble goal, my administration has continued to strengthen the investigative, law enforcement, and prosecutorial functions of government and embrace the multi-agency approach to encourage joint intelligence sharing, investigation, and prosecution. And these measures have already reaped visible benefits. Honorable members, it is not enough to merely jail and fine those who have looted from our public coffers. The wealth stolen from Kenyans must be returned to its owners, the people of Kenya, with a clear message being that corruption does not pay. In this context, that we have entrusted into the asset recovery agreements, we have entered into asset recovery agreements with foreign countries in pursuit of a robust restitution strategy. In the reporting period, the Asset Recovery Agency has investigated 20 cases and preserved assets worth 1.1 billion. Assets worth Kenya shillings 72 million were forfeited to the government, and further recovery proceedings on corruptly acquired property valued at Kenya shillings 7.5 billion were instituted. Additionally, assets worth Kenya shillings 2.5 billion 2.5 billion were recovered, while bank accounts holding Kenya shillings 264 million were frozen pending determination of recovery proceedings. We have also introduced new accountability measures applicable at all stages of the public finance management cycle as a critical prevention strategy. Honorable Speakers, honorable members, we must accept the truth. That is, one or two branches of government cannot hope to resolve this problem on their own. And that is why we look up to the judiciary to do their part, to apply the law firmly and fairly, and for Parliament to uphold high standards, mindful of the strategic interests of the nation in the exercise of their legislative and oversight mandate. We need to ensure that corruption cases are heard and determined on a priority basis. Kenyans are waiting to see more convictions and far less cynical exploitation of court processes to protect a few. Indeed, I particularly urge the judiciary not to appear to protect their own or to allow the abuse of privilege in the case where their officials are suspected of or have been under active investigation for corruption. In saying this, Honorable Chief Justice, I do not, for 1 minute, presume to direct the judiciary or Parliament. That is certainly not my constitutional place. But it is indeed my duty as the head of state to remind every arm of government of their solemn duty and the high expectations of Kenyans as espoused in our national values. Mr. Speaker, I also urge the county governments to work with the national government in this most important task of moral reawakening. Equally important, I urge every public and private institution in Kenya to join us in waging this war against corruption and economic crimes. If you love your country, you should reject corruption and all those who steal the sweat of your countrymen. This, honorable members, is one war I am certain we shall win. Honorable members, I must say that I've been under pressure that who am I asking? But no. But I must, however, caution that the pursuit of the corrupt will be undertaken strictly within the remits of the law. It will not be done through vigilante justice and pitchfork protest. Though media narratives rally our resolve as they should, our actions will not be based on condemnation before one has been heard. The cornerstone of our democracy is the rule of law and the principle of due process. And the principle of due process is a critical anchor of that principle. We must aspire abidingly to this ideal and ensure that we do not pursue justice in one area through injustice in another. I remain confident in our investigative and prosecutorial institutions to diligently deliver justice on the strength of the evidence and in fidelity to the law. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I have said and done before, I once again undertake that anyone whose case goes before court will be removed from government, and any individual will thereafter have to answer his case before a court of law. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I wish to emphasize our place in history and the national endeavor to strengthen rather than weaken our investigating and prosecuting agencies. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, honorable speakers, I have spoken at length on what we have achieved in pursuit of our development agenda and the challenges that we still need to confront so as to realize the better Kenya we all desire. But I must once again make it clear that we must work together, friends. The executive, the judiciary, parliament, citizens, if we are to deal effectively with the challenges standing in our way. And I count on all of you and on all Kenyans as we move ahead with this struggle. There will be no turning back. There will be no sacred cows and no compromise. The fight must be won because it is a fight for the soul of our nation. The values of integrity, hard work, and sacrifice must be reinstated and held dear in the eyes of our children, and I intend to be the president that delivers that future. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is now my pleasure to submit to Parliament the following 3 reports as required by the Constitution. A, report on measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values 2019. B, report on progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic 2018. And C, report on the state of security of Kenya 2018. Mungu na wabariki na walinde. Asanteni.
Okay, order, members. Honorable members, you may be upstanding. Your Excellency, the President, the Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable senators, honorable members of the National Assembly, it's now time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 9th April 2019 at 2:30 p.m. in the Senate chambers. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, honorable members of the National Assembly, the National Assembly stands now adjourned until Tuesday, the 23rd of April at 2:30 p.m. All members, order, there will be order in the House. Order, members, all members and guests are invited to the Parliament courtyard for a reception, but you are, however, requested to remain standing in your places until His Excellency the President and the Speaker's procession leaves the chamber. I thank you, honourable members.
There you have it, the much-awaited State of the Nation address. The much-awaited State of the Nation address by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, delivered right here in the National Assembly chambers in this joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. The exit procession currently on hold as the President greets members of the bicameral parliament. He is escorted there by the speakers of both houses, Honorable Justin Muturi of the National Assembly, who has just adjourned sittings until the 23rd of April 2019, and that is to allow members of the National Assembly proceed for their short recess, and also Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, Speaker of the Senate, who has also adjourned Senate proceedings until next Tuesday, that is 9th April 2019 at 2:30 p.m. A State of the Nation address that has essentially lived up to expectations of Mwananchi, the President maintaining that there will be no turning back on the fight against corruption. There will be no sacred cows, to quote him, and that anyone who is implicated and is arraigned in court, especially for persons in government, they shall be relieved of their duties. The President saying there's no turning back on government reforms that include implementing the Big Four agenda, environmental sustainability, the Building Bridges initiative, which he says is promoting inclusion, cohesion, unity, and respect. No turning back on devolution, which His Excellency the President says has proven to work, even as he loaded the other two arms of government, the legislative and judiciary, for their roles in helping government achieve its role. That speech also had the President heaping praise on Kenyans who have been outstanding in putting the country on the map for the right reasons. Eliud Kipchoge, the current world marathon record holder, Brother Peter Mokaya Tabichi, the teacher who recently won a global award for his efforts to assist underprivileged students access education, which is key. Education, a sector which the President says the government is committed to ensuring its continued success. And especially when it comes to implementing the new curriculum that continues to draw mixed reactions from stakeholders. This broadcast was brought to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. At this very juncture, at the conclusion of the State of the Nation address, the exit procession already out of the chambers, members of the National Assembly and Senate following closely behind as they head to the courtyard of Parliament for a reception to mark this occasion. My name is Vereso Mwanga, and on behalf of the entire crew here, I wish to thank you for following this broadcast that has also been available for you on KBC Radio Taifa, as well as on Bunge TV on the Signet platform, in addition to a live stream on YouTube. A similar broadcast resumes next Tuesday. It will be Senate proceedings at 2:30 p.m., 9th April 2019. Until then, it's goodbye for now. on government reforms that